Flipped, a professional development program for higher degree supervisors and students. Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and welcome to this flipped higher degree professional development session for our PhD and Research Masters students at Charles Darwin University. All relationships in life can be simple, they can be complex, and all relationships change. The doctoral student and supervisory relationship is so complex, it's so vexed, because so much is at stake for both parties. And it's my job today to be really precise about what is at stake. How to ensure that supervisors and students understand what is at stake and how a successful and stable relationship can be completed to enable success. Success is very clearly defined in doctoral education. A PhD is submitted in 3 years and passes without correction. That's the aim. But intellectual, professional and personal effort is required to deliver a student and a supervisor to that goal. My job today is to put punctuation into that relationship. I'm not telling you what to do, but this short little presentation today and our following workshop will manage specific issues, questions and challenges that are important to you. I want to show you today the commas, the colons, the capitalisation, and indeed the full stops in the supervisory relationship. There are 5 words that are the pressure points or stages for all students in a supervisory relationship. And these 5 words are expectations, assumptions, motivations, disappointments, and satisfaction. A student and supervisory relationship will break down if either party cannot get beyond one of these stages. These first 2 stages, expectations and assumptions, happen in the first year. The second 2, motivations and disappointments, happen in the second year. And the final year, satisfaction, will carry you to graduation. Occasionally, this entire cycle, or the cycle up to disappointment, happens in the first year. And that is when a supervisory relationship changes. And that is when often students change supervisors. So let's talk about what these words mean. Well, expectations. All of us, when we move into a new moment in our lives, we're filled with happiness and excitement about what could be. More damagingly, we rarely write down these expectations. We become lost in words like happiness and joy and love and success, and we never take that word and walk around with it a bit, define it and describe it. And it is the same in a doctoral program. We're so excited by the opportunity and proud that we got in, and so thrilled that we're about to become a doctor after spending 3 years looking at something that really, really interests us. But because we've never done a doctorate before, our expectations have absolutely no grounding in any form of reality. So, and here is where we get to some damaging expectations. We expect a PhD to be like a master's or an honours degree, just a bit bigger. And that's the path to failure right there. We expect our relationships with our supervisors to be amazing. We expect to be an outstanding teacher at the end of the doctorate. We expect to get a successful lectureship post in a good university on a tenure track, and we'll never have to worry again. That's just a few of the expectations we have going into the program. Now, none of them are true, none of them are real, and none of them are going to happen. But their function in what is to come is really clear, because they frame a pathway to disappointment and despair. One of the main reasons students leave a program is that the program is not what they expected. The question is, how could it ever be what they expected? So we're doing some work shortly on considering your expectations and where they come from. But the great challenge is expectations lead to assumptions. Those of you who have heard me speak before or read all my work on doctoral education know that I believe that assumptions from a student and assumptions from a supervisor are the causes of the relationship breakdown. I hold both parties to blame, by the way, perhaps the supervisor more so. And I spend 2 hours in my first meeting with my students talking through their expectations and their assumptions. And I negotiate and also explain some of the fantasies that are in these assumptions and expectations. I am staunch and I'm pretty tough at the start because good relationships in life and doctoral education are based in reality, not fantasy. We haven't got time for a supervisory honeymoon if I'm going to get you through in 3 years. So assumptions, what are they? Well, they're derived from expectations and are the concrete outcomes of vague hopes around happiness and success. So here are a few assumptions that students express. My supervisor will like me. My supervisor is my friend. My supervisor will see me when I need him, her, or them. My supervisor will read my written work. My supervisor will guide my reading. My supervisor will be intricately involved in my research design. My supervisor will get me a job at the end of the candidature. Now, I can go on. There are thousands of these. Now, I'm not saying that some of these are not true or might become true. But you don't know. I don't know. They're assumptions. And the only way we can convert assumptions into truth and falsehood is to talk about them. So there must be a place, a safe place, where you can talk about your assumptions. The supervisor can talk about theirs, and you can come up with a supervisory agreement. And look, they are called supervisory agreements. Most universities have them. At CDU, we have a supervisory charter. These are formal words to describe the student and supervisor sitting down and talking about their assumptions. Do you want to know a few of the supervisory assumptions? And this will be important when we talk about disappointment in a sec. But supervisors have assumptions like students will attend a meeting on time, they will read widely, they will read deeply, they will write frequently and well, they will maintain deadlines, they will be responsible for their own work, and they won't blame and complain at others or about others. Now, that's a few. Now, their assumptions too, they're not true. So this is what's happening when we have assumptions and you don't reach them. Assess yourself against that list. And once the assumptions are negotiated between the supervisor and the student, or they're not, we're left with motivation, or its demon binary partner, procrastination. When confronted with the reality of completing a PhD for the student and supervisor, some really negative emotions can saturate the relationship because reality is like that. We all like to live in a fantasy of how great our life is, and then in comes a phone bill, and then you have to wash your partner's underwear, and your partner never seems to close the fridge or change the toilet roll, and we all sigh at the state of life. The key moment, and to be frank with you, I know if a student is going to complete a thesis or not at this point. The key moment is if they can understand the reality of their supervisor's context, and build a truthful and real supervisory relationship. If the student can pull their head up, get their shoulders back, and get on with it, and they can see the good in it, they know what their supervisor can give them, what they're good at, and what their supervisor can't give them and they can't do. And you accept the positive and the negative with gratitude, and then you push on with motivation, direction, and focus to finish the thing. I know we're in trouble when a student understands the assumptions, their own and their supervisors, and then the language of blame, of whinging, of nastiness, of bitterness, of regret start to tumble from the student's mouth. And at this point, instead of being motivated to finish, the student procrastinates. The characteristic of successful, motivated people is that they feel the fear, they manage the disappointment, they cut away the blame of others, and they get on with it. Success does not come from finishing, success comes from starting. And then success continues to emerge by taking one more step, then another, then another, then another. I'm interested in the context, the environment around a PhD student and supervisor. And what this means is we need to create a context for motivation, create a context that removes excuses from our lives, claim responsibility for the thesis, claim responsibility for your life, for your future, and stop blaming other people for being themselves. Stop blaming other people for not being like you. Motivation can come from many sources, intrinsic and extrinsic. But ask yourself, how precious is your life? How precious is your time? Do not spend 1 minute of your day, 1 minute of your life, complaining about other people. That complaints culture does two things. Firstly, it wastes your time. Secondly, it stops you looking in the mirror and claiming responsibility for your decisions. So motivation comes from managing the disappointments of life, seeing the disappointments for what they are, and then realising your expectations, your assumptions were not real. What happened was you invested your desires and hopes in other people, not in yourself. So at that point, we can claim our power, claim our intelligence, our time, and our agency to complete the doctorate in the minimum time. Success starts when procrastination, blame, ridicule, gossip, and nastiness stops. Make a decision to stop this stuff. And at that point today, you are motivated for success rather than procrastinating your way to failure. And of course, the next stage is disappointment. If students and supervisors cannot summon motivation, they get lost in procrastination and negativity. They get lost in what I call gonna, coulda, shoulda. They're gonna do it, they could have done it, they should have done it. And instead of just, do it or don't do it, decide. Then we hit disappointment. This is when generally in the second half or the second year of the candidature, students change supervisors or supervisors disconnect from students. Both of these acts are an admission of failure. The students are active in it, they change. So let's change supervisors. The supervisors frequently are passive in it. They tend to ghost students. They believe that the student won't make it and disconnect from active responsibility in the process. Now, don't judge your supervisors too strongly here. And this is the moment where I tell you a truth that maybe people haven't told you. Supervisors worry a lot, and they are disappointed a lot. Let me tell you the disappointments that we as supervisors manage. And these supervisors are caused completely by students. Here are the top 10. 1. The student does no or little reading and thinking that opinion is going to substitute for research. 2. They do no writing. There's nothing for us to assess or evaluate in terms of standard. 3. Students don't draft their writing, so the most basic unreferenced material comes to us and we have to do something with it. 4. Students don't embed corrections, so students have taken 6 hours or 2 days to make the corrections on the draft, and the next draft we read, the same errors are still there. 5. Students do not implement a crucial deal-breaking bit of commentary about content or approach. Supervisors keep reminding them, this is important, do this. Students do not do this. Then supervisors know then that the student will fail the doctorate or they won't finish. 6. Students miss meetings. 7. Students stop working, they go on holiday, they procrastinate. 8. Students complain about everything, coming to meetings and using the time to have a good whinge. 9. Students are unpredictable, they're emotionally volatile, they shout in meetings, they slam doors. 10. Students are silent and moody. They sit in meetings and do not do much. I call this the Yoko Ono in the Let It Be sessions student. So as you can see, there's a lot going on there. Most supervisors have incredibly full lives. And when I draft a PhD student's work, it happens at night, it happens early morning, it happens on the weekends. It happens when I need to sleep. It happens when I'm just desperate to stop working. And if you think about it, I'm just about to relax. I think I can stop. And I remember I've got one more chapter to read for a student, and that keeps me away from bed for another 2 hours. Think about how it would feel if we go to all that effort and then you don't bother to embed those corrections. That's disappointment. But the key to managing disappointment from both parties is to keep the communication channels open and express the disappointment, not with emotional intensity, but in context. Explain why this particular issue is important. So manage the disappointments through honesty and listen to what your supervisor is saying. And remember, I always tell your supervisors this. Listen to what the student is saying. Listening is key. If disappointments can be managed, then the final stage of the supervisory relationship is satisfaction. This is the peaceful stage, where both parties recognise the strengths and weaknesses of the other. They accept those strengths and weaknesses. They value the human being for what they are, rather than what we may want in that fantasy university and that fantasy PhD. The PhD is the worst research we will ever write. It's not perfect, it's not excellent, it is good, it is solid. It demonstrates your ability to abide by scholarly protocols, and that's it. The sooner that supervisors and students can get to satisfaction, then the better the relationship will be and the better the thesis will be. The best and most experienced supervisors know these stages and try to truncate the first 4 as quickly as possible. We know the disappointment will come, and then we know how to handle it. Satisfaction is knowing there will be good days, there'll be bad days, and your supervisor will have weeks when they are exhausted and may not even get to your draft because they haven't seen their own family. They are so shattered. So we all need to be cool with that. That's real. That's the context. Your supervisor will ask you how you are feeling and guide you through those motivation and success arcs. And the doctorate will be finished and it will be submitted. As most of you know, I'm an enormous fan of Peter Capaldi, and although he's played some of the landmark roles in screen culture, if you think about Local Hero, The Thick of It, and Doctor Who, to name a few, he's confronted a lot of challenges as well. He didn't make it into drama school, and there were some pretty bleak years there. But a great life is punctuated by how we manage disappointment, rather than how we enjoy success. And Peter Capaldi's great statement about life, and he only makes a few of them, is, quote, "Worrying that you are crap is a waste of time. Worrying that you can't do it is a waste of time. Worrying that you failed is a waste of time. No one cares. Get on with it." End of quote. If you worry, if you feel failure, if you assume the world is talking about you and cares about you, you are wrong. And you'll fail the doctorate because you won't finish it. Success is waking up in the morning, assuming responsibility for our actions, changing what we can change, and know that we make decisions and those decisions are important. Accepting what we can't change and getting on with it. The supervisory relationship is a difficult one, but by understanding its punctuation and its patterns, it can be managed. See you in our seminar.